Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 5 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. AI4, the world's premier conference discussing artificial intelligence and its many applications for business, was held August 7 through 9 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas just a few days ago, and featuring some amazing speakers on important topics related to AI and business. Today, we're going to talk about the AI4 show and some of the key insights from the show. And I'm happy to be joined again by one of the many great speakers that led the conversation. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome back Alice Fournier, CIO at ISS Americas. Alice, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Greg. I'm feeling pretty lucky to be back with you after just attending the conference. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get started and talking about some of the key insights and some of the discussions had at the conference, for those that missed the first episode that you joined prior to the show, can you give a little background on yourself as well as on ISS Americas?
Sure. So I am CIO for the Americas at ISS. So ISS Americas is a facilities management company. So we handle every type of service that you need to keep offices running well, to create great workplace experiences. So janitorial services, technical services, thinking about running plumbing, HVAC, electricity, changing light bulbs in buildings and real estate of all kinds. And of course, our Guggenheimer brand, which serves fantastic cafe foods and micro market types of in-office food services. My role as a CIO is to oversee all of the technology infrastructure that serves our needs, as well as all these connection points with our many clients across the Americas.
Wonderful. So let's get started by, so you were one of the speakers at the conference, and I wanted to hear, if you don't mind, just kind of summarizing what you talked about at AI4.
Yeah, thank you. It was, there were so many great speakers. I was pretty grateful to be one of them. What I focused my talk on is really around return to office and how to leverage technology to create a great experience. Of course, as you know, right, every company is challenged with figuring out what is it that you do to bring employees back. So we see the gamut of mandating, not mandating, 2 days, 3 days, specific days, not specific days. So it's an evolving, a very alive question, and we are very much in the heart of it. And I suppose in the talk, my invitation was to really consider what is it that you can do, leveraging AI, leveraging technology, to make the experience in your offices or we have clients across manufacturing plants, production plants. What do you create in order for employees to want to come back to the office, and mandated or not, I still think there's so much that can be done leveraging technology and leveraging some AI to just create something better than pre-pandemic. I mean, this is an opportunity to do things differently, and technology plays a big role. So that was the core of what I brought up.
Yeah, yeah. And so what's the most exciting part about that to you as far as the challenge of return to office and hybrid and everything, where do you see the biggest opportunity then with AI?
Yeah, I think that the biggest opportunity is to do things differently. Definitely around sustainability. There's a lot happening around food waste. We touched on it. That's an area that I'm always very, very inspired with. So, leveraging different kinds of technologies, proprietary to us or not through partnership, but looking at waste, energy consumption in buildings, managing the food waste, so whatever our chefs are not using, but also our customers' employees, and how do we help them limit food waste, bring more recyclable, compostable. That's not AI driven, but it's part of the sustainability component of creating a great experience. But that discussion around leveraging technology to create a more sustainable approach to the physical workplace is one that I keep going back to as a really exciting impact that we can have on multi stakeholders, really, on people, on the planet, on our wallet and our customers' wallet. So it's a real sweet spot. So I would say that's probably the area that is most exciting to me. But then again, there are other simpler uses that are also meaningful and impactful in businesses.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I loved about the lineup at the AI4 conference was just the diversity of practice areas. A few weeks prior to that, I spoke at a conference that was really just focused on marketing and AI, which was fun in and of itself. I mean, marketing is certainly an area that I know a lot about and have been in the industry for a while. But I think the diversity here was really interesting to me. And while I like a focused discussion from in many ways, I think the benefit here was to see just how AI can help in such a broad spectrum of ways in the world of business. So, given that, what were maybe some either sessions or ideas or thoughts that you heard during the show that were maybe well outside of your industry, but that were really interesting?
Yeah, that was a benefit. You're absolutely right of this conference, is that you could see application and uses and struggles really across
Yeah.
just about every industry. The highlights there, it's hard to capture them. I think much like I have a long retail background, so anything that touches, and there was a great presentation by someone from Dick's Sporting Good on leveraging AI, but through in their marketing approach. So that was definitely very interesting and a really great application. So retail is always super super interesting to me, but the probably some of the really interesting one was the opening keynote. The keynote was by a company called Wonder Dynamics, and they do AI in filmmaking. Now, the technology itself was super interesting, but what was really, really exciting was the gentleman's story, his own story, where basically he's developed this company that opens up producing movies through leveraging AI in a way that makes it much more accessible. We know the kind of cost that big blockbuster productions are hundreds of millions of dollars. His approach helps through AI make it more accessible to a wider set of people to enter the market of movie making. And when one of the things that he was discussing about his kind of bigger purpose was around inspiring more people, creating access, leveling the playing field a bit, and then connecting that back to his own story as an immigrant. I forget which country specifically he was from, but I believe he was from the ex-Yugoslavia region, so he himself would have never dreamt to be part of the movie making world, but through these technologies has found a way to participate in this world. So I love that aspect, which is back to this idea that AI and the development of AI, because it's so new, everyone can learn. And you have people, of course, this doesn't diminish the people who have worked in this space for many years and developed the models behind the models that support it. But as far as where we are now, it's becoming much more accessible. So the applications in many cases would show how you can level the playing field and open access to spaces that might have had barriers. So that was a
Yeah.
real highlight.
Before we continue, let's take a quick break. If you're like many marketing leaders today, you're inundated with a need to improve the customer experience across an increasing number of channels and touch points, all while ensuring your team is performing well, innovating, and continuously improving. So how do you find the time to determine what's next for you, your team, your brand, and your customers? My company, GK5A, can help. Whether it is advisory services, evaluation of marketing technology platforms and solutions, or digital agencies and implementation partners, or assistance with creating strategic roadmaps and prioritization of efforts, we've done it all and served as an ally to Fortune 1000 brands in industries like financial services, healthcare, consumer electronics, professional services, and more. You can learn more about these services and contact us at www.gk5a. That's www.gk5a.com. Now let's get back to the show. I think the trend of I think a lot of different terms for it, but the citizen data scientist or the, low code, no code interfaces for these things. I mean, just the fact that we were chatting right before we started this interview, Chat GPT, it gets all the oxygen these days as far as the conversations go. And while it's only one piece of this, it does get some credit for kind of opening up this whole conversation in a broader way and just kind of demonstrating the benefits of when you democratize some of these tools and methods. There's some really interesting things can start happening. So was that, did you see that kind of throughout that democratization of access and stuff like that? Did you see that throughout?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge theme. This idea that you need new skills in order to meet this world, right? And skills around critical thinking, curiosity, comfort with uncertainty, which that does democratize, because there was a time where technology, I mean, I think it's still the case. I see it in my day to day, but technology and definitely AI were very scary,
Yeah.
and people wouldn't feel comfortable. And I think definitely that ChatGPT and that these technologies have removed a lot of the fear and make it definitely available. And we saw it. I loved someone mentioned in one of the conferences, how, and you'll know that this touches right in my heart, but technology for frontliners. And the statement that the gentleman made was, build with and for your frontliners, not against them.
Hmm.
And I love that, because that's what technology can do. If you go into the field of your workforce and you understand what the needs are, then the technology doesn't come in to replace people. It just comes in to make their lives hopefully better and their work better, and to bring what only the human touch can bring, and let the more repetitive, less value adding tasks be maintained by AI. And I really enjoyed that sentence, and it stuck with me, because I thought, this is not about robots taking over the world. It's really, if we do it well and if we think this through, it's about creating technologies that help people.
Yeah, I definitely, I subscribe to that. Let's call it the more optimistic approach, because I've seen I'm sure you have as well, and many listening. We've all been through a few of these trends, and the scare of, okay, this is going to change everything, and surely AI has the power to change lots of things, and it has, to your point earlier, it's also been around for decades. So it's not like it's a brand new thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the discussion around just the role of augmentation as opposed to replacing jobs is certainly one that I think it needs to keep being talked about, because I think there is still a lot of fear, and some of that fear is warranted. There are some jobs that are going to get replaced, and there are certainly portions of jobs that are going to get replaced. But yeah, I mean, I think, do you overall get the sense that there is some optimism in the community then?
Oh yeah, I'm a fundamental optimist, and there is plenty. There's tons of optimism around everything it can contribute to the world, to business, and to come in as an augmenter. And I know we had discussed that, but that was definitely the theme. I was actually quite curious to know how it would be addressed in the room or in the different discussions. And that's really how people are thinking about it, a way to augment, a way to do more. So I think that that's absolutely fantastic. And one of the other big statements that came across just about every single conference that or every single presentation that I attended was the need to find the right use cases, because this is where I think you get some successes. And that's when you really understand what is it that you'll use this thing for. If you just want to do AI, that's a way to waste a lot of
Mhm.
money for your
Right.
organization. But everyone was discussing how when you hit that sweet spot, when you find the use case that AI is really good for and very applicable for, then wow, you can just nail things. And that was it was fascinating because people as presenters, we don't get in a room and align our presentations. Everybody does their own thing, but that message of find the right use cases, ask the big questions before deep diving into AI. Those questions were, everyone somehow in their presentation had that statement. And that was positive, because sometimes with technology, when a lot of enthusiasm gets generated around the technology, everyone just wants to go do. But because you had a lot of leaders, many of whom were in the room and had been working with AI for a long time, that was a real big statement. And it was great to hear, because I do think it's important. I think, especially now putting back my CIO role, as leaders, as technology leaders in organization, that's our role, to help say, hey, yes, yes, and yes, we'll work with AI, and we're going to understand where is it that it can impact the business most meaningfully.
Yeah. Yeah, and this, in some ways, this feels familiar for I'm sure you and others as well, as whenever there's a shiny object in in the world, it was, pick your shiny object from the last several decades or so. And do you think it makes it different, though, that because AI is so dependent on not only data but good data, do you think that makes it different, as far as when we're talking about asking the right questions and setting up the right tests, and or is this just sort of a continuation of the latest trend, and hopefully we're learning a little bit about asking the right questions ahead of time?
Well, I think it makes it different. Yes, this data component does. There were other technologies that came that you could adopt, almost call it, I'll say, in a silo. It's not that
Yeah.
simple, but you could bring them into a business without really a deep reflection on the how and
Yeah.
the outcome. And but I do think that Where AI becomes significantly different is data is it relies on data, but both the upstream and the downstream. So the upstream, because it's so complex to figure out all the data sets and all the right questions and the right prompts that you need to train your AI. So what's going to go in it and how will you train the models? So you have to clean it upstream, and most organizations have been struggling with that. And AI is definitely not going to be a solve. And if nothing else, it'll cause more problems because it will expose the challenges with your data. But
Yeah.
the downstream piece of this, which I really liked, and this was presented from someone from MasterCard, brilliant, brilliant presentation. And she was saying the more critical the risk, the more distance. And by that, what she meant was if the decision that you will make based on the output of your model has a high risk. So you may be discussing people's lives, people's credit, whatever it is, or big business decision. Will you make a sizable investment, sizable divestiture? So the more risk that your decision has, the more distance you have to put. And by distance, it's about really challenging the outcome, looking back at your data. And I like that. So if you have a low risk decision, you can probably make it with an approximation, because that is how you have to think about the output. But if your risk is very, very critical, not your risk, but your decision is critical and it's high risk, then you should put more distance and ask bigger questions of the output. So I really like that. I think it's important to how we leverage these tools in government, in business, and even in our personal lives.
Yeah, yeah. Any surprises from the show? Just something, it could be something you didn't really expect to find as compelling as you did, or just some things that something that caught you a little off guard.
Not so much off guard, but you know what I always love? I Probably because it's not a field that I've ever evolved in. I love to hear how the government
Mm.
uses these innovative tool. There were a couple presentations, and every time, I mean, we sometimes think of the government, and it is a massive organization. I know the challenges of pivoting and changing and innovating in large corporations, but I cannot imagine what that requires in government settings. And we heard from different government agencies, and I'm always excited when I hear of the innovation within the government at every level, whether there were municipalities, state government, and federal government. I
Yeah.
love that because I think the government, in the end, is an investor in all of our future. And so a lot of the innovation that I see, to me, is just unexpected because it's not generally the reputation, if you would. And when you see it, you think, wow, this is inspiring that you have people, within the government, within these massive, massive, really complex machines, really pushing for innovation and for different ways of doing things. I always feel very inspired when I see that. So I would say that was my big highlight.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's always, I mean, I live right outside Washington D.C., so I should know this stuff too. But it's easy to forget that for all of the bureaucracy stories and slow moving stuff, that yeah, they put people on the moon and
Yeah.
they're all of these amazing, and even in the security industry and national security and all those kinds of things, like amazing innovations. But yeah, you don't really think of those kinds of things coming out of purely Silicon Valley or something like that. So yeah, definitely interesting. Nice. Well, Alice, thank you so much for joining again. Really, really appreciated you coming back here. What are your next steps? As you, not only your work with ISS America is already in progress, but maybe picking up some additional ideas or insights. Where do you see exploring and implementing AI in the enterprise next?
I think we're going to be focused on the areas that we're already focused in. I did pick up a few ideas, but I won't share them with you.
Sure. No worries.
Maybe I'll come back in a few months and share
Yeah.
the outcomes. But yeah, we have a lot of areas that we're working towards, and working on our data and truly serving the needs of our customers. A lot of those needs will benefit from continuing to work on data and to focus on how we best understand the way information travels. Because in the end, IT is information technology.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about everything that's happening in the world, but certainly in our world at ISS, and just excited to share a lot of these insights with my team. And thank you for having me again. Really appreciate it. And that's a great podcast, and keep doing it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Again, I'd like to thank Alice Fournier, CIO at ISS Americas, for joining the show. You can learn more about Alice, ISS, and the AI4 conference by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GREGKIHLSTROM.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.